Good morning, everyone. I appreciate your presence. Um, I want to ask if there are any questions prior to some of the things I would like to discuss today. Any questions about anything that was discussed on yesterday, or anything in reference to something you have experienced in the last week or so? Not. I I've been confronted with some things that I would like to share with you. Um, I don't quite know how to approach them. However, make every effort to do it in a manner that is easily understood. Um, I want to talk about the idea of the death of Jesus and how it relates to us, not us as a group of people on the phone, but I'm talking about us in this realm of humanity. What is it that this death of Jesus, what did it do? What was the significance, or what was the purpose of Jesus' death? And I suppose another question would be, why is it that we view Jesus' death in the manner that we do? The Aramaic understanding of death is quite different than our Western religious understanding of death. The Western religious view or understanding of death is not that much different than the biologist who doesn't believe that divinity exists at all. The biologists believe that death is the cessation of biological function. It's the end of the presence of the breath and energy are in the physical body. It does not deal with where it goes when it exits the body in the same manner that the Western religious mind does. The Western religious mind believes that death does occur with the exiting of the exiting of the body. The exiting of the breath from the body and the end of biological functions. But there is one caveat, and that caveat is that in addition to the ending of biological functions, the spirit, the religious mind believes that the spirit goes to a place called heaven. Are you hearing static?
Yes, and you're fading out a little bit
Yes.
as well.
I beg your pardon?
It stopped, but I said you were fading out a little bit as well.
Okay. The spirit, the religious mind believes that the spirit goes to this place called heaven and to be with Jesus. But the Aramaic mind simply believes that, or says that death means that you are in a different place, a place where all spirits are, a place where all spirits are one. Jesus' death is a bit different in that we see it as having transcended all physical limitations, not based upon simply the dying, but also the resurrection. Jesus' death raised questions like, um, to me anyway, questions like, was there anyone in heaven before Jesus came to the earth? Because if we listen at the religious thought when it comes to dying, we are waiting to go to heaven to be with Jesus. So was there anybody there before Jesus got there, or before Jesus came to this earth? And if there wasn't anyone in heaven, then was heaven an empty place? Was it inhabitable at all prior to Jesus coming to this earth? And those questions I raised because they are in reference to this strong, unending belief that we go to heaven to be with Jesus. And prior to that, everyone was in this place called Hades, or in the pits of the earth. So I don't, or as the Jews and Catholic put it, in purgatory. Those concepts to me are truly foreign to what I see or understand about the scriptures. Are there any questions about that so far? Okay. If I'm going to, I'm getting a lot of static. So if you don't mind, would you pause, Sheldon, and let me, now with that, Jesus then, and was anybody in heaven, if there were people in heaven, were spirits or souls in heaven, like who were they, or had they lived in these bodies prior to being there? These are the kind of questions that I raise because of the prevailing religious thought when it comes to the death and the life of Jesus. Now, and if I'm not talking loud enough, please let me know. Jesus was the Word, and the Word was in the beginning, and the Word was God, or Elohim, and the Word was Elohim, was with Elohim, and it was made by the Word. Then is the Word also, or whatever heaven is, it is the same thing as the Word is. And if that is the case, then we have to take another look at heaven aside from what we have been told from religious thought. If heaven is the Word, then there isn't any place to go when the Spirit exists, when the Spirit exits the body. If we're looking for it to go to heaven, there's no place for it to go. So when the Aramaic mind speaks to the ideal of death as meaning that we are in another place, it's not referring to a location. Rather, it is referring to a state of becoming, a state of being. Death is a place outside of the body, or is death really actually life absent from the body? Again, if death is a place outside of the body, or is it life absent from the body? If death is life absent the body, then the body is a hindrance to becoming aware of the true, pure nature of our essence. Heaven then becomes awareness of life and not a place of habitation. It is more of an awareness
that all is light and light is all that exists. This idea of death makes us totally aware that there is nothing in existence except light itself. And again, I repeat, the hindrance factor in wrapping our minds around this or in embracing this with the depth of with a depth of understanding is our physical body. It's amazing to me that the body itself can be such a hindrance when it comes to understanding the origin of everything that is, when it comes to understanding who we are, when it comes to understanding spiritual things. How is it possible that something as inanimate as a body can be such a hindrance to our understanding? It probably is such a hindrance because we see our bodies being synonymous with life itself, as opposed to seeing that life exists with or without the body. And I think that the life of Jesus truly spoke to what we are experiencing, in that Jesus battled within, with leaving this earth, leaving his body, and staying in his body became a battle. Because when we think about it, when we think about death, we think about leaving this earth. And maybe, just maybe, the connection between our bodies and this earth physically is the source of the hindrance of our being able to see life as it really is. Because if you give thought to it, you don't have to leave this earth simply because you leave this body. Jesus left the body, and Jesus left the earth when he chose to, not simply because he left his body. Any questions about that? I see what I'm trying to say, and I hope I'm saying it clear enough for you to get it, because I am indeed going somewhere with it. So, any comments? So Jesus' death, as brutal as it was, is a message. It's a message that captivates our attention for the purpose of informing us of the nature of our essence when we are free from these bodies. Without the power of Jesus' death, there would have been no power in his teaching. The disciples, well, let me say this. Without the death, there would be no power in Jesus' teaching. Why? What Jesus taught had been taught prior to Jesus coming. However, Jesus' death and the nature of it, coupled with the resurrection, is what gave power to his teaching. The disciples were enthralled; they were by the teaching, yet they did not realize, or they didn't become aware of what Jesus was teaching until Jesus died. They wrestled continuously with understanding, and I was ventured to say even believing a lot of what Jesus taught. They wrestled with it until after he died. The The revelation of the power in his teaching came alive in them after his death. They then remembered what they were taught, yet they were frozen in time and were apprehensive about teaching it. It was their experience with him after he died that gave them the zeal and the courage to tell humanity what they had been chosen to teach. They taught about Jesus' death and resurrection. They taught that a time would come when there would be an end to the earthly powers as we know them. And they taught that the time would come when Jesus would return to the earth. These are that they taught, but my question is this: why did they teach those things, but they never taught about their own resurrection? They didn't teach. Why did they not teach that they were Elohim as well? Why is it that Jesus could teach that he was Elohim, and Jesus could teach them that they were as he is, and Jesus could teach or taught them rather that whatever he did, they would be able to do it as well. But not only that, but greater things also. Why is it that they did not focus on those aspects of Jesus' teachings, the teachings that guided mankind to understanding that it is more than human, that guided mankind down a road that would help them to see that death is not what we have said it is, and that life is totally different than anything that we have expected it to be. Is it possible that they did not see who they were, or was it planned so that they would not see with a clarity what we are teaching now? The disciples did not teach what we teach now. Yet we are teaching what Jesus taught. So were they teaching about the man Jesus and his experience in the earth? Or were they teaching what they thought he taught? Now, I don't believe that they were teaching what they thought he taught. I do believe they were teaching what he taught them, but they were teaching more about him in the earth than they were about his teaching in reference to humanity being in the earth. Does that make sense to you?
Yes, it does.
Okay, thank you. Today, this hour, this period of time, we are being shown that we are Elohim, just as was Jesus and the disciples. This is the time period that was created before the foundation of this physical world was laid. It's in this time period that we have the privilege to grasp the depth, the meaning, and the power of the mission of Jesus. The mission is the purpose of the teaching. We get caught up on the teaching and we lose sight of the mission. And it is my belief that the disciples either were not shown the mission, or the disciples were so caught up on the teachers until they lost sight of the mission. When the crucifixion occurred, the disciples were devastated. When the resurrection occurred, they were elated. When the ascension occurred, they debated what they were going to do. They became the teachers that they were instructed to become. But they did that with much trepidation. The mission of the disciples was to keep the teachings of Jesus alive by giving their lives in order to teach. This, what I'm saying is this. My belief is that their mission was to keep the teachings of Jesus alive. That mission is different than the mission that we have this day. Our mission could not be accomplished or even dreamed of were it not for them keeping the teachings alive. Our mission is not to keep the teachings alive. That's already accomplished. Our mission is to be the living teachers of Jesus. We are to be the living, breathing, resurrected word that we're taught. Any questions or comments about that? The living, breathing word that we're taught are Elohim.
Question. Good morning. This is Audrey. You said Jesus's mission was different from his teaching. Am I understanding that correctly?
No, I said the disciples did not see his mission.
Can you elaborate a little on mission versus teaching?
The teachings that the disciples rendered taught about what Jesus did when Jesus was in the earth. The mission of Jesus' teaching was to bring us to where we are today. And I'm about to step into that area in just a moment. The teachers, I can teach you how to be a surgeon. And you have not accomplished the mission of being a surgeon until you actually perform surgery. Does that make sense? I can give you all of the principles, but you don't become a surgeon until you begin to perform surgery. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay. So if I'm not clear, if I don't get a greater clarity on the difference between the two in just a moment, then raise that again with you, Audrey.
Okay.
Thank you. Anyone else? Okay. Everything that has taken place up to this point was for the purpose of now. And when I say everything else, I'm talking about Jesus' actions in the earth. I'm talking about the things that he verbally taught in the earth. I'm speaking also of the death and resurrection. I'm speaking of what the disciples taught about Jesus' journey on this earth. All of those things. I'm also speaking in reference to the miseducation about what Jesus' mission is and the miseducation about what the scriptures were saying. That miseducation comes by way of religious teaching. And a classic example of that is when we are taught that one of the things that in the scriptures, the handling of serpents, that, people who handle serpents, because the scripture says you will handle the serpents and they will not bite you. That's the idiom that speaks to the idea of being able to handle challenges without fear. So all these misunderstandings of what the scripture saying, all that stuff brought us up to where we are today. So all of this time that we have been searching for the understanding of the wisdom of the scriptures, all of this time we have spoken about the disciples being messianic. We have spoken about us being messianic. We have explored what it is to be messianic. I saw something, and this is where all of this journey started, with this idea of this, clear view, I suppose, of being messianic. Messiah, being messianic is not a label. It is not a title. It is ability. It is spiritual ability. It is the spiritual ability to accomplish spiritual feats that manifest physical change for the benefit of everyone. The idea of being messianic is an ability that accomplishes spiritual feats. Spiritual feats are what we call miracles. And they manifest in the physical for the benefit of everyone. An example of one of those spiritual feats is when we talk about the exposure of all of the things that needed to be changed, or all of the adverse challenges that humanity faced, that we needed to bring some semblance of healing to, or change. When we spoke of those things, we began to see them exposed, and that is a spiritual feat, because we did nothing in the physical to expose them. We simply have a deep desire for that to happen, and it did take place. The ability to do that is actually trusting that desire is the beginning of every spiritual journey, or every journey for that matter. Any questions or comments about that? Here we go. Jesus did not die for our sins. Jesus died because of sin. Sin is entanglement. Jesus did not die for our entanglement. If Jesus died for our entanglement, then why are we still entangled? Jesus died because of our entanglement. And when I say our, I'm talking about humanity, period. Jesus died because this entity called Adam had gotten so entangled with being human until it no longer could find its way back to being one again. This entity called Adam had gotten so entangled in being human until it had become too fragmented to see itself as one, as one with its creator, or as one within itself. And that's when I say had become so fragmented. I'm talking about this entity called Adam had become so fragmented in that it could see itself as being a man, a woman. It was fragmented into races, fragmented in between the rich, the poor, the educated, uneducated, the fat, the skinny, the ugly, the cute, etc. There's so many fragmentation in this human life until it had lost its sense of unicity with the Father. Questions or comments, please?
Would
Jesus. Go ahead.
I was just saying I would go further to say that Jesus did not sacrifice in the way that we've been taught. Jesus said that he was going to die and come back, which would mean that he knew what he was doing, and he did not see death in the way that they saw death. When he said die, he meant die as a human being to try to increase their understanding, which is what he told the disciples, over and over again before he actually, I guess, died a human life on the cross.
Yes. And the disciples had been taught that Jesus, that everyone who died would be in Sheol, and Jesus' death showed them something quite different than that. The whole idea of this sacrificial death is foreign to the scriptures, but it is alive and well in religious circles, which means that the religious circles are dead to themselves or dead to the truth, as opposed to being the living entities that they purport to be. Jesus died to show us how to exit the body and live, and how to enter the body and live beyond human, beyond how to live beyond the physical. He taught us how to exit the body and live, and how to enter the body and live beyond the physical. What am I saying? When Jesus died, Jesus exited the body and then re-entered the body or reconstituted the body, and in doing so, live beyond the physical. Questions about that? If you understand or if I'm making sense of what I'm saying in that regard, please just say yes or no, or maybe so, or raise a question or comment. You can't do that without unmuting your phone.
Yes. Yes, I understand.
Okay. So
I don't think I
What's
quite
the-
understand. I don't think I quite understand. He left the body and came back and reconstituted the body.
Jesus died and was resurrected, right?
Okay.
And when Jesus died, he left the same body that we have, right?
Right.
However, when he came back into that body was reconstituted in that he could go through walls with that body.
Okay.
Okay?
Okay. So he was far past that of being a human, as we know humans see. Okay. All right.
Yes.
All right. Thank you.
You're quite welcome. Our body in this world, in this realm of physicality, are like, would you use the phone, please? They are like an identification card in that Jesus re-entered or reconstituted his body for the purpose of identification. Had Jesus shown up in a different body, or had Jesus shown up and they could not see him visually, then it would have been more difficult for them to accept that the reality of his resurrection. So what Jesus did, he showed up in the body that looked exactly like the body, or the same body actually, that he left from, that he exited. And that is why he told Thomas to put his hands in the hole and kept his hands, etc., to show that this is the body that had been crucified. So the body in actuality is a mechanism through which we are identified, or how we identify each other in this physical world.
Question.
So, yes.
So why weren't they able to recognize him at first? Just because they didn't fully believe it could be him?
That's exactly it. They could not fully believe that, oh my God, this is really you type thing. Yes. They could not believe that he had resurrected, because keep in mind, that had never happened before with them or in their lifetime. And they had been taught differently. Right now, with us, if indeed there are those who have transitioned and we have shedded tears and we didn't want them to leave, if they show up, most folk will be gone. They will run. We are actually afraid of apparitions. When people show up, what happens? There are people who are even afraid to go through a cemetery at night. So they were living in a period as we are today, when there was the popular religious thought was, when you're dead, you're done. Even though that's not what we say, we don't believe that. But if anything else presents itself, then we have a tendency to leave the area quickly. Any other questions or comments?
I have one. If Audrey is finished.
I am.
Okay, at that time, was Jesus considered as being born again because with the body that he had? Because he describes to Nicodemus about, being born again and all that other stuff that he talked about. So at that time, was he born again because of the, because he had left that body that he had previously?
No. The concept of being born again and being resurrected are two different things. When Jesus was talking to Nicodemus about being born again, Jesus was talking to Nicodemus about the reality of what Nicodemus thought he understood in the scriptures. Jesus was talking to Nicodemus about understanding what the true nature of the book is. The resurrection the creation of man, or Adam, the creation of everything that is, and it oneness its unicity with the Creator. Example, Jesus was saying to Nicodemus, in order for you to know that you are Elohim, in order for you to know you God, you got to go back to the beginning. Go back and go to the beginning and understand what was said and done during that period, and then you will understand who you are. When Jesus was resurrected, it was showing humanity. It was a demonstrative thing. It was demonstrating to humanity that this is who you were created to be. You were created to be God. You were created to be Elohim. And even in being Elohim, you do have the authority, you do have the ability to also be human, meaning be in human form. The idea of being in human form and being human are two different entities. Being in human form, Jesus did not lose the essence of his spirituality. We, being in human form, are human only, struggling to see that we are indeed spiritual beings. Does that make sense to you?
It does. And then I thought about when you were talking about his body was different. It was a different, made of, I'll say light body, so to speak. I just thought about how he, you know, he would move from place to place and people would not know how he got to where he would, you know, where he was. So everything is falling in place now. I see what you're saying.
Okay. Anyone else? Anyone else? We go ahead. We are in a different, we're in a period now, a time period that the earth has been known, and you've heard us, we talked about that before. It's time to face the death of the human with dignity. It's time to understand that the human died at the cross. The spirit left the human at the cross. It's time to leave the human at the cross. It's time to leave the human at the cross and become Elohim. The human died at the cross. Hear what I'm saying to you. The whole idea about crucifixion is about the death of the human so the life of the created can become real to the human. The death of the human is not just a body that died. The death of the human is also a conceptual death. And the conceptual death of the human consists of those principles that tie us so inextricably to this physical world until we are unable to function as spiritual beings. Does that make sense to you?
Yes.
Reverend, yes. This CK. Well, why are people always saying take it at the foot of the cross when you're saying it was the human at the cross, leave the human at the cross? So is that why they say that, or are they just saying something just to be saying something?
No, they believe that. One of the things that really got me in trouble was, why is it that you walk around with a cross on your neck and it is a method of execution? If you really want to celebrate the resurrection, then you need to figure out how to put a sepulcher around your neck and not a cross. But the resurrection did not take place at the cross. The cross is death. And the reason humans have such a hard time embracing the spiritual nature of who we were created to be is because we spend all our time at the electric chair, at the guillotine, at the cross. One of my neighbors have a gigantic cross in their yard. And I want to tell them so bad, that is a method of execution. You may as well have a guillotine or hanging with you in your yard. Christianity is about death, not life. And I'm saying this knowing I don't know more than about. Christianity is about death, not life. If it is about life, it will not be about the cross. Because the cross is about death. Jesus says, pick up your cross daily and follow me. Why? Because you must be constantly reminded that you are engaged in a spiritual crucifixion, crucifying the principles that tie you to this physical world and seemingly separate you from the spiritual. Does that make sense to you, Captain with the Sleep?
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. If please understand something. I have been in the same place most people are when it comes to the cross. I understand that there is spiritual growth that must take place in order for us to get beyond this thing called the cross. The cross is the place of death. And again, let me reiterate, the human died at the cross. And we must leave that human at the cross and at the very least get to the sepulchre for resurrection. Being messianic is the ability to become aware that we are Elohim. Being messianic is about the employment of all of the principles that speak to our spiritual nature. When a king was anointed in Israel, why was the king anointed? The king was not anointed to govern a land. The king was anointed to govern a people. And the principles of righteousness and justice were the principles that were to be employed in governing those people. When we are messianic for the purpose of being the expressions of righteousness and justice and peace and all of those attributes of Elohim. So the idea of being messianic is the idea of being aware that we are Elohim. This is one of the things that gets me about the whole idea of Christianity. Christian speaks to being messianic. And if we are Christ, Messiah, all those are the same thing. So it is impossible for anyone to say that they are a Christian and deny that they are Messiah. So both of them are the same thing. That in itself is confusing. Does that make sense? Yo. Go ahead.
I was just saying yes.
Go ahead. Okay. So, this is where we are. This is our plight. This is our obligation to humanity. This is our obligation to all who have journeyed before us. This is our obligation to our ancestors. We must take every opportunity to embrace the reality of who we have been created to be. Think about this. The whole idea, especially during this period, there are people who are engaged in something called Lent. I received a text message some time ago, 2 weeks ago, about, and it was actually an invitation or a reminder about Lent. And I respectfully responded by saying that I don't celebrate Lent, and less of that. This whole idea of Lent is an idea rooted in Catholicism that has as its motive control and manipulation. It does absolutely nothing to change you. This is a physical thing that has no spiritual meaning. This whole concept that leads up to this period of Lent is crazy in terms of how it is done. And you can do anything that you want to do, all your sins, and then you seek forgiveness. You purge yourself, and then all this leads up to the crucifixion. I don't get that. The other thing about it is that at least the Catholics don't lie about the cross. Because the Catholic cross still has Jesus on it, so just telling you it is about death. And simply because we have taken it and made it something quite different than what it we have. Let me put it bluntly: we made it a religious symbol as opposed to being what it actually is. We are obligated to everyone who travels this journey before us to do everything we can to embrace the reality of who we are. When Jesus arose, these are the words. This is the thing I don't know. It's just anyway. When Jesus arose, the words that were translated rather as he has risen, those words were "come." And these words mean he has succeeded. He has come through. He has achieved his purpose. That's what should have been translated. He has risen, should have been, he has succeeded, or he has come through. Listen to what is being said here. He achieved his purpose. He talked about his dying and resurrection. If this temple is torn down, it will be raised again in 3 days. He told them what was going to happen. He spoke about the rising of the temple. Our mission is to bring humanity to the place of understanding who it is, that it is spiritual, period. That's our mission. And our mission cannot be accomplished if we don't understand the wisdom of the words that are written to guide us along the pathway that leads us to the accomplishment of our mission. We must at some point get to a place where we have come through. We must come through for humanity. Everything depends on this. When we talked about what happened, actually since it took place, about what happened on January 6th at the Capitol, when we talked about that, when we talked about Black Lives Matter, when we talked about all of these things that have taken place, it is incumbent upon us to make sure that we become the clearest mirror possible so that humanity can see itself. It is imperative that we go through whatever struggles we must in order for us to be the example for everyone who crosses our path. It's imperative that we don't teach, that verbally teach, that our lives are a source of teaching for those who cross our path. And I'm not talking about the churchy thing of your life being an example, because that's not it at all. I am talking about the teaching of Jesus. I'm talking about loving your enemy. I'm talking about being loving kindness without regard to what we have to face or in terms of adversarial thoughts and adversarial words. We must make sure that we are in this place of visibility to those who are in search of enlightenment. We must be that beacon of light in these dark and confused times, so that at some point when we transition this life, or when we transition these principles that roots us or grounds us to this earth, when we transition those principles, we will be seen as having succeeded, or at the very least, we have come through what? The trials and tribulations that have kept our feet nailed to the ground of this earth. We've come through those trials and tribulations, and now that we are in this earth, but we are not of it. We're in this world, but we're not of it, meaning that we are not inextricably tied to this world. We are spiritual beings who function in this setting for the benefit of humanity. Any questions or comments?
I do have a comment about what you talked about a little while ago to ask to this, and a question I think it was asked by Evelyn, and I was looking for it the whole time, but I couldn't find it. But in terms of the disciples being with Jesus, the disciples were fascinated with these things that they saw as miraculous human feats, and they did not understand or grasp or nor really accept what it is that Jesus was telling him, the teachings and things like that. They were only seeing Jesus through their human eyes and not understanding the truer spiritual concepts. And even when they did, they tried to deny their existence. And I finally found it. The thing I was looking for, I was looking for it in the wrong place. His disciples said to him, 24 prophets spoke in Israel, and all of them spoke of you. He said to them, you have omitted the one living in your presence and have spoken only of the dead, saying that the understanding, which was the same understanding that that the disciples had of him being of human quality, he was contrasting that and saying that that is death, that is not everlasting, which is, you know, the human experience, the human experience alone. And it goes along with what he had been saying all along in terms of everlasting life, saying that one, when they get to know the kingdom of heaven or one with the Father, that's where he was, that's where we be, that's life forever. So just wanted to add that in terms of what we're doing compared to what the disciples were doing. The disciples kept his words, but didn't believe it and wasn't really teaching from the understanding of teaching them, but they did show us what he said. So we do have his teachings directly, so to speak.
Any questions about what Sheldon said or comments? Sheldon, where did you read that from?
That was Thomas 52.
All right, thank you.
All right. I was trying to find it in around the end of Matthew's and Luke, where I thought I saw it, but it wasn't there.
Anyone else? This is one of the other things I want you to add to this. And that is, we have been taught that Jesus was the last prophet. Then there are those who taught that Muhammad was the last prophet. Is there such thing as a last prophet? And the reason I raise that is because if a prophet is one who speaks the mind of the Creator, or utters the words of the Creator, then that's the Creator starts speaking through men. We have this sense of if it's and the spirit of antiquity is real, but if it's with us now, it's not real. But keep in mind that when Jesus was in the earth, during that present period, the time of antiquity was behind him. And they refused to recognize him as a prophet because they felt the same way people feel now, that there are no prophetic utterances in my time period that came before me. That is pure ignorance. There is never a time when there isn't a prophet in the land. There is never a time when there isn't someone in the land who recognizes who they are. There hasn't been a time as this. For so publicly has there been people desiring that the righteousness appear in the earth like never before. There's not been a time when there were people who would look at the new heaven and the new earth as being now. Look at the resurrection of truth as being now. Looking beyond a body being resurrected, but looking at truth being resurrected. Understanding, embracing, and desiring to know truly what's in the scriptures. Not just from the sake of, not just from the for the sake of bringing people together in a congregation or in some large setting for the purpose of performances. No. But bringing people to a place of understanding for the purpose of living life itself in the way that it was supposed to be. And I'm not talking about getting up, going to work, and eating and dancing. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about a spiritual life that presents itself to humanity for what it really is, an opportunity for peace and harmony, an opportunity for a fragmented atom to become one again, an opportunity for fragmented thoughts to become whole, an opportunity for walls to be torn down and for moats to be filled in, or for them to be connected with bridges. This is where we are now. We are in a period of opportunity, and the opportunity that we are in has nothing to do with job creation, but everything to do with spiritual understanding. We are at a place where we can no longer debate whether or not this thing is real. It is real. We know it's real. We know spirituality is real. We know religion is not. We know this. So I'm saying to all of us, as has been said when we were growing up, don't forget who you are. Don't forget where you came from. Don't forget that what's expected of you. Who are you? Elohim. Where did you come from? The mind of the Creator, the soul of the Creator, that's where we came from. Don't forget who you are. And because of this, we have an obligation we are at a point where no longer are we searching for balance. We are no longer waiting for balance. We are the balance for humanity. You are the balance in your house. You are the balance in your community. We are the balance for humanity. We are that harmony for humanity. It's not a search anymore. We're no longer on the journey anymore to get it and bring it. We are it. The very thing that we sought to apprehend, the balance, the peace, has apprehended us. We are it. Any questions about that?
No,
This
but
is Barbara.
go ahead, Ms. Barbara.
I have, I've been looking at Thomas as well, and saying 1:11, Jesus said, the heavens and the earth will roll up in your presence, and whoever is living from the living one will not see death. Does not Jesus say those who have found themselves, of them the world is not worthy? And this seems, this is saying what you're talking about. when you're living from the living one, there is no death, meaning spirit never dies, in a sense, is what it's saying. And then saying 112, Jesus said, damn the flesh that depends on the soul, damn the soul that depends on the flesh. In other words, we are beyond all of that because we are Elohim. So our dependence is not mutually upon the flesh versus the soul, but we are beyond even that.
Thank you, ma'am. Anyone else? Bob, you want to go further into an explanation of that?
This seems to be comparative of what we know as duality. You gotta have one. You gotta have one thing in order to see the other. Well, once we're Elohim, we no longer need that duality because all is oneness, and oneness is all. Whoever is living from the living one is not separate from that living one. And when one is not separate from something, there is no duality. I am is all that I am.
And that's the unicity of it all right there. We don't have to be fragmented. And when we talk about the unicity of masculine and feminine energy, the unicity of humankind, the unicity of everything that is, it is what we are actually saying is we are recognizing that the concept of fragmentation is really an illusion. It is not real at all. That's where we are. Questions or comments?
I have a question.
Pastor. Go ahead.
In the beginning, you were talking about how, and I guess you were talking about the disciples, but us too, how we let our bodies get in the way. And we talked about like the five senses yesterday. If it is indeed an illusion that we are fractured, how do we ourselves get past the fracturing? How do we get past the body and the five senses and all that? What do we do to get past that? Or to get beyond that, I should say.
I don't believe you get beyond the body and the five senses and that you will have those five senses, but I do believe that you get, when I talk about being beyond that, I don't mean being absent from those things. I mean being more dependent on your spirituality than you are on the five senses. Have you felt bad? I'll give you an example. When I started this morning talking, my head was hurting. As a matter of fact, the left side of my head and my neck was hurting. Now it's not. Now, what happens? When I teach, and I can only speak of me in this regard, you have no experiences. When I teach, regardless of how I feel in terms of pain or emotional issues, when I am caught up in what's being taught and I'm experiencing it, then everything about me that is in the physical world begins to change for the better. So I guess what I'm trying to say, Audrey, is that the more I focus on that which is spiritual, that which is real, the less I am affected by those things which are bound by the physical world. Now, it doesn't mean that I cease to be a part of this physical world. It does mean that I become a dominator in this physical world. And I would be most appreciative if I could get some help in regards to responding to Audrey's question.
Well, going along with what Audrey asked and what Barbara just mentioned in terms of that, the fragments or the duality,
I don't like when
it is, mute your phone, please. I was thinking about and was going to bring in the conversation the idea of a demon or the devil as it relates to duality. And simply speaking, Jesus didn't speak of or experience the devil. He experienced Satan, which was the tempter to, it wasn't there to confuse him. That was his own self going through the process of questioning being Elohim and being what he professed to be or whatever. And actually, it was really just thoughts. That's all it was just thoughts that he was having. But the need and what we did as human beings, and I say this theoretically, we created the devil to explain and put aside the things that we did not want to accept in terms of entanglements and not accepting the whole. So in the same way, when you think of the complete hatred or disregard of anything that you completely dismiss and not have any care for, that is the thing that you want to separate yourself from, and you want to withhold love from, and you don't want to connect to. That is why the church has to have a devil in order to have its traditional God. It has to have this good and evil type thing. So the idea of not getting caught up, I don't want to say caught up in the five senses, but more so being ruled by the flesh, is just the idea of being able to operate in a knowing that you are not only flesh. So, and I'm going to give an example. People who typically have life on earth, ending experiences, after going through that, immediately become more comfortable with death in most cases, is because they felt like they have experienced a quote unquote human death, and then know now that they actually exist beyond that, and so they don't actually die. So they're different experimental, but have been done for quite some time now, and these things are very ancient. But for example, people who are going through stage 4 cancer actually goes through certain treatments that they can go through with medical aids that essentially almost give them the same exact thing that old people go when they have Alzheimer's. And so now all of a sudden they have, in a sense, died in terms of their ego, who they know themselves to be. But then they, all of them say that they experienced something. Even atheists who still don't believe in God said, I met God, I experienced something great. I experienced this unbelievable amount of love and joy like never before. And it's life transforming. And then they're able to live the rest of their life, knowing that their physical body could cease to exist at any moment with the greatest amount of joy because they're not held captive to the five senses, so to speak. So I guess the quick answer in a very long way, because I took a while to get here, is just more so the experiencing and believing, but by I don't care to use this word, but by pushing the faith to opening ourselves up to certain experiences, the more that we do that, and it's almost like we're able to cut off the five senses at times, then we're able to have these certain experiences and grow in them in terms of the knowing. Yesterday, Janice mentioned intuition. Well, our intuition, of course, is always there to certain degrees. We are not necessarily in touch or need to hone our abilities to recognize our intuition and to hear it, so to speak, or to feel it, however you want to describe it. And it is through those things through life that more so start to lead us away from the five senses. The other remarkable thing, and I'm only, I hate explaining things in scientific ways, but this made a lot of sense to me, and I understood the child thing and everything like that. And I mentioned it a little while ago. So what happens even in the brains of those cancer patients when they are administered certain natural aids is that our brains have certain pathways where they connect certain parts of the brain. As we get older, they become very rigid. That's when we get kind of like stuck in our ways, and we only start to see things in a certain way and can't see them any other way. We have a one certain part of the brain that pretty much runs everything. Is like a control center. Everything runs through it. What happens when these people are administered these substances is that particular part, I forget the exact name of it, no longer has control, and all of the brain starts to collaborate more and communicate with one another. And then what happens is these people are immediately able to get over addictions and things like that. This is also the same way that children's brains are when they first come into the earth, and older people as their brain starts to deteriorate. And this is what makes reality start to be different in a sense. It is the reason why children have certain experiences that go beyond just our physical reality, and why I said when they are saying that they see someone or playing with a friend and noticing different things in the world, that part is true. The same thing happens when we meditate or are very mindful and do other traditional exercises as well. It's the same thing that happens when you've been fasting for 40 days and nights, and you're starving. So I don't know if I did a good job answering the question, but it's actually living life, having that true knowing or having faith in that knowing, and then experiencing that knowing and recognizing your experiences and honing those experiences. And is more so of, I don't want to say a growth, but it is a growing in awareness. Did I answer your question?
Oh.
Sheldon, I was looking for like harmony and a merging of the two through meditation, but yeah, you got there.
Well, I had to try to provide like other information for people who are, I guess, might be doubting or whatever. So just showing it or explaining it on different levels. Because the funny part about it is the people who have been doing this through before Jesus' even time and these prophets we're talking about, they probably don't know all the science stuff that we're talking about. However, it is a way when we were talking about tapping into this wealth of knowledge that you have ancient people who had completely mapped out and traveled the entire universe and the stars and knew about all these planets without any spaceships or satellites and things like that they were actually sending out.
Okay. Any other questions or comments?
I
wanted to make a comment as well. Thinking about what was said earlier and the readings from Thomas, I think one of the things that has been eye-opening to me was I had to get out of my head what I had been taught about being a co-creator. Because even when I think about being a co-creator with Christ, that to me speaks to separation. And what I mean by that, it teaches us more about not having unicity, but it speaks to duality. And so, point in case, for example, if I say I'm going to create a meal, I don't say my hands are going to create a meal. I create a meal. And I have to understand that the I that's creating the meal, my hands are me and I am my hands. Same thing with the way we create things. When we start getting out of that thinking of the things that we've been taught that actually speak to separation, then we have a clear opportunity of understanding what we are and who we are. And also when we look at Galatians, if we look at Galatians 3, 6 and 3, it says, "For if a man thinks he's something when he isn't, he deceives his soul." What that says to me is I have to get out of my mind that I am something and understand that I am no thing, meaning I am no one thing. And as a result of being no one thing, that makes me become everything. As a result of being everything, I understand now that I am really one with everything. And as a result of that, you said earlier that I am to dominate. Well, what are you saying? If I recognize that I am no one thing, but that I am everything, domination comes in the form of influence. So I can keep saying I am the influencer of everything. So I think for me personally, it starts with digging up some old concepts of things that I've been taught about, co-creation and all of these things that separate and don't bring me to a place of unicity, because when I get to that place of unicity and understand that I am no one thing, I am nothing, but that I am all things, and through that ability of being all things, I have that creative energy to change everything, then that starts me on this journey to letting go of these things that I thought I was limited in being able to do, and opening me up to the realm of possibility of seeing that I really can do all of these different things. And I just wanted to add those thoughts.
Thank you. Thank you, Kathy, for adding that. And I had some thoughts. Well, I guess I'm at a loss for words. Part of this, also, what you just explained was the accepting, because when the duality is not accepting. So accepting the all and merging of the all and actually seeing yourself as the all, which in itself is expanding who and what we are. And it's something that happens naturally when we reach out to help supposedly or another. We're able to find talents and abilities that we didn't even completely know were there. And this help and this aid, when done genuinely, actually comes not flawless, effortlessly, and in a natural manner. And as you were talking about the scriptures, I was going to bring up earlier today, a little while ago, John 14. John 14:12, of course, as Pastor was talking about earlier today in terms of the prophets and Jesus saying that what I have done, you will do more. That entire chapter is Jesus during their pleading with the with the disciples, telling them every way that he can that he, the Father, and the disciples are one and connected. And he is speaking to them, even though it doesn't sound like that. You think Jesus is mentioning these things as being separate, but then saying they're the same. He is saying that because he is talking to the disciples from their understanding on their level in terms of they are being separation and duality. So he has to acknowledge, okay, this is what you see yourself as at the moment, just a human being. Me, you have been with me and I have performed all of these miracles, and you think I am great and all knowing, you're following me. And then 3, you think that I am sent from, I am the prophet of all prophets. I am one of only one, the son of the Father. I have a special relationship with him. You know, I have this special relationship with the Creator, with all that exists. But I'm also telling you that you actually have that same thing as well. And then he goes on to tell them over and over again that that connection to the Creator, that part of the Creator that they are, is within. And he's not talking about, of course, a physical, just a physical thing. He's trying to tell them that to their core, they are the Father, who they are one, and it's not separable. I'm finished.
Okay.
And may
Anyone
I add
else?
one thing, and Shelton, basically, because I forgot to say this, along the lines of what you just said, when we limit ourselves, we deceive our souls. When we limit ourselves and see ourselves as being incapable of doing what we know we can do, or being what we're being shown and what we're learning to be able to do now, because it's in us. It's not missing, it's there. But when we limit ourselves and can't see beyond my humanness, then I am deceiving that knowing part on the inside of me, and that through that deception, I am now rendering myself incapable or having the inability to be able to do what I can do, because I am limiting myself through my thoughts and through my actions and through talking myself out of it. When I hear this, do I sit with what's been taught and see myself in it, or am I like the disciples, seeing the works of someone else, thinking, wow, they did a great thing, but not realizing that I too can do those things? So I wanted to just speak to that deception of the soul, that very part, the innermost part of me, the knowing part of me will be deceived if I don't understand that I am all things. And by being all things, I'm capable of doing everything. I become limited, and that resonated with me because it's a revelation of, because I hadn't always seen it as I'm seeing that. I think it's important, and I just wanted to add that.
Then as oh, go ahead. Oh, I just wanted to say something right quick about within. I wanted to say something right quick about within, that maybe may help that concept or that idea. And I was thinking about this earlier today. Hello?
I'm here.
Oh, okay. I thought someone was talking. So this is actually a quick philosophical question, but I'm asking it for a reason. The question at first is a rhetorical question, so there's no need to answer. So there's this philosophical question there. If there was, let's say, an ancient boat and it was put in a museum, and over time, different parts of the boat, which was wood, needed to be replaced. And over time, every single piece of wood, every part of that ship basically decayed and was replaced. So you still have the same exact, well, not the same, but you have the structure of a boat there for thousands of years, always being repaired, but now every part has been replaced. The philosophical, and this is a rhetorical question, is, does the boat still exist? The boat that was put in the museum. Now, we talk about within, we're talking about who and what we are. We're talking about beyond physical. Every person on this phone right now is not the same person in physical terms that you were 10 years ago. Every last one of our cells is basically a new cell within the past few years. There's no physical portion of ourselves that existed as we were kids. So when Jesus is talking about this within and this knowing, he's talking about that part of ourselves that's not even physical. That is the same thing, as more so the essence of what we are. That is the everlasting part. That is the part of Jesus that supposedly died a human death and then came back to exist. This is what Jesus was trying to get the disciples to see and realize. That is what we say when we talk about the Father is within and we are one. I'm finished, Pastor Richard.
Any questions or comments about that, or anything for that matter?
This is Evelyn. I have a comment. I thought about and everything that everyone has said is very, I really appreciate. I thought about when Catherine was talking about everything. For some reason, that's a key for me today and really all this week. And I don't know if anyone remember the song by the Stylistics, You Are Everything and Everything Is You.
Mm-hmm.
And I go back and I listened to the lyrics of that song. It made Kathy bought what she said earlier about being everything. She really bought it. Really, she really shed more light onto that, and I really appreciate that. And those of you who never heard this song, or those who have heard the song, you may want to visit it again, because when you listen to the lyrics, it means, it's just saying everything that we're being taught. And I'm just grateful she shed light on that. That's all I wanted to say.
Anyone else?
And in the words of Pastor and George, I'm done.
For now. No questions, no comments? Hey, I want to leave you with something. If not, one of the fans of Thomas speaks to the idea of the one who has light in them. If you have light in you, you are to let it shine. And if it doesn't shine, that means you're dark. What I'm saying is this: you listen at the enlightenment, and the enlightenment that you listen at is not just for you; it's to enlighten others. And if you have that opportunity to be the source of light or enlightenment, and you don't do it, you don't take that opportunity, then you are no different than the one who walks in darkness simply because they don't know any better. As a matter of fact, it's even worse, because as Thomas says, you're like the Pharisee is like the donkey's feet in the cow manger. He's not eating, neither will he let anyone else eat. So the worst is meaning that you're not feeding anyone, you're not letting them eat from what you have for them, and neither are you truly eating. You are just stockpiling what you're receiving and not doing anything with it. So my my desire for all of us is that we become not so much familiar with, because we are familiar with it, but we become who we are. We be the Elohim. We be the light that the earth needs. I read an article, and in that article it said that the dust from the Sahara goes into the Amazon every single year. And without that dust entering the Amazon, it is doubtful that the Amazon could even exist. So it's that it's the minerals that's in the dust from the Sahara there in Africa that keeps the Amazon alive. However, it went on to say something else. There is a danger there. No longer is the Amazon absorbing the carbons in the air. It is now giving off carbon, which is further ameliorating the Earth's atmosphere. It is up to us to realize that we are the influencers. We are the dominators. Not only must we be the influencers of men, we must be also influencers of the environment. It is up to us to change the direction of this destruction. Why? Because we are the source, we are balance itself, and the balance that we are brings balance to humanity as well as the environment that humanity exists in. So keeping those things in mind, I look forward to answering questions, raising questions, and speaking concerning those things that the Creator allowed us to in the near future. If there are no comments or questions, then we will end at this point and pick up tomorrow. No questions, no comments?
In the
Okay.
meantime,
Go ahead, Lenny.
in the meantime, while everyone is going to listen to the Stylistics, another great song, what George shared a while ago is One Song by Prince.
Yeah.
That's a powerful song. What's the name of it? Okay.
One song, just one O-N-E, then song, S-O-N-G, by Prince.
Okay.
Or the artist formerly known by
You can-
as Prince, I don't know. But yeah, just Prince in one song.
No warning.
One
Okay. Bye-bye.
All right, everyone. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye, everybody.
Great
Thanks, everybody. Bye.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Take care.